Alright, so in this video, we will set up the shader and the final lighting for our scene. So before that, I just want to we'll take a piece of geometry and I'll call this base. And I'll just make a simple base for this. So I'll take a grid and let's get this down to 2 by 2. Okay, press 3, select the edge and do a poly extrude. And then turn on transform extrude and just move it straight up. And then I can press 3 again, select that edge and do a bevel. So just take a poly bevel and we'll make it about 20. Okay, so that's basically it. And let me just take this and I'll make it slightly smaller. Yeah, this is good. Okay, so I'll just come in here and I'll set up a light. So we'll first set up a camera and I'll make it small. So I'll do 640, 480. I'm going to use Mantra for rendering, but the rules are mostly similar. So any renderer that you're using, you should pretty much be able to, just replicate the result. Okay, and so the first thing is we'll take a ROP network, we'll add in Mantra, and I'll set this to the rendering. I'll change it to physically based, and in the render tab, I will set the maximum processors to 20. So I have a 16 core processor, so that's 32 threads. So I'm setting about 20 for rendering. The rest remains the same. I don't need to change anything at all right now. Okay, and then I'll take a material network and we'll just set up 2 materials for now. So I'll just come into the material palette and we'll open up the material network and I'll take in 2 principal shaders. One we'll call base and the second one we will call as, let's call it test. Okay. And we'll just assign them. So this goes in here and that goes in there. And now let's set up, firstly we'll set up an environment light. I'm going to use an HDR. I'll attach the HDR with the final file so that you can use it. So I'll use this thing called Studio 19 and increase the intensity a little bit. And let's do a render. So I'll just save this file. Okay, and we'll go to Window, New Floating Panel and Mantra Rendering, Render View, and just, hit render. It'll take a few seconds to start. Yeah, so there you go. So this is the basic render. If you want to see a final render, turn off this button. Turn off the preview button and it'll do a final render. And by default, the principal shader automatically has an option to pick up point color. So you don't need to sort of, worry about that. The only thing is it is multiplying it with this existing value. So I'll just increase this so it becomes brighter. But yeah, but I don't want to use the principal shader because I want to make some changes to it. So I want 4 different materials, one for the sprinkles, for the icing, the cake and the paper. So let's set those up, from scratch. So what we can do is we can come to the material network and type in principal shader core. And I want 2 things in here. So I'll just set those up beforehand. So the principal shader core is like the base version of this. The difference is it doesn't have an automatic option to pick up point color. So the way you can pick up point color or attributes within Mantra is the same thing that you do in WOPS, which is you take a bind node. If you're in any other render engine, like you're using Redshift or Arnold or something, I believe it's called user data. And in Octane, it's called the color vertex attribute node. Okay, so you can use that. But yeah, so in Mantra, you just take a bind node. So just type in bind and we want to pick up the color. So just type in CD and I will pick up I'll pick up color. Okay. And then I want an option to color correct this. So if I want to make it darker or brighter, I can make those changes. So I'll just take a color correction. And so I can plug this in and take this into base color. And so let's change the name of this. So we'll call this cake. And then I want to duplicate this 4 times. Okay, so I can just take all of this and we'll just do controls. Yeah, so do control C, control V. Yeah, and control V. Okay. And so this will be icing and this will be sprinkles and paper. And then I'll come into the cake and we'll just assign materials. Okay, so we'll come down here or come up here, take a material node. We're not assign, you can also generate groups and assign it that way. But in this case, I'll just, assign it separately. So 4 of them, and then I can just come in here and material network. Now by default, it doesn't show you the principled shade or core. Okay, it's just showing you the base one. So what I can do is I can just pick one of them and then delete it and it'll start showing you the rest. So where are we? Hold on, let me just come ahead. Yeah, so that's the icing. Okay, so this is start typing the name, it'll show up. Okay, so this is icing, and then I'll just do control C, come in here. That is sprinkles. Yeah, and then we'll come to the cake. Yeah, and then this is paper. Yeah, okay. So we're good. So let's just come down here. Let's come to the final frame. So we can see the sprinkles as well. Yeah, I just want to do one thing, which is in this color, I want to make this slightly darker. Yeah, so that it's not, like the lines. Yeah, there you go. I think that's a little bit better. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay, now lighting wise, I want to make one more addition to this, which is I want to add like an area light coming from top. So we'll just press tab and take an area light and have it point downwards like this, a little bit to the front. And then just click here on the color and we will set a temperature for it around say 5000. Okay, so let's hit IPR again. So we'll come back here and let me save this file and let's hit render. Yeah, so there you go. So it's decent enough. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. Okay, now let's make a few minor changes. So firstly, I want to take the environment light and make it slightly darker. So let's make it around 0.6. So our primary light is sort of like coming from top. Yeah. And let's also add a light coming in from the back. So because what I want is I want the paper to have a little bit of translucency, so it'll show up better. So let's just do like a control C, control V, and I'll take this, I'll spin it, and just move it back there. Let's come into the base and I just want to push it back a little bit. Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's hit IPR again. Yeah, that looks pretty decent. Okay, now let's start making some changes to the shader. So first of all, with the icing, I want a little bit of subsurface scattering in there. Okay, so let's just, we press shift and drag and that will give you, a box. And then come into the material network and we'll come to icing. So this is the best part, right? So the reason why I want a color correction is that if you want to increase the saturation or reduce it, it's, easier to do that. Also, if you want to just, adjust the hue and get it to a different direction, that's not a bad idea either. So always plug it in through a color correction because you get, additional control. Okay, so what I want is I want to make it, like lower the roughness a little bit. So it's a little shiny, and then I want to increase the subsurface scatter. But what we'll do is I'm just going to turn off, let's call this backlight. Let's call this top. Okay, so I'm going to take the top light in the environment and turn it off. Okay, so I'm going to turn off light enabled and light enabled. So we'll just have the light coming from the back. And what I want to do with that is come into the icing and you will find subsurface. Just increase that. So, see, you'll start getting like a little bit of subsurface scattering. If we want, what we can do is, let me just move these to the side, is I can duplicate this, do Control C, Control V, and I can plug in the same color into the subsurface color. So the subsurface color is also reddish, except I'll lower the saturation and maybe like lower the gamma a little bit. So it becomes a little more pale, or hold on, increase it. No, hold on, like up the value. Yeah, upping the value might be a good idea. And you can also play around with the scattering distance. But no, I think 0.1 is good enough for what we want. And keep it to full subsurface, like don't do single. Single doesn't look very nice. It'll be faster, but it doesn't give the result that I want. Yeah, so this is for the icing, but I also want to do the same thing for the cake. So the cake should also have a little bit of subsurface scatter. Okay, it looks better with that. Okay, so just take it here. I'll get the subsurface color to something brownish and then just increase it a little bit. Yeah, so you'll get a little bit of that light bleeding through, which makes it look a little more, organic. And then lower the IOR to around 1.2, and we'll also lower the roughness to around 0.5. Oh, sorry, 0.1. Yeah, so this is good. Okay, now I want to set up the paper. So what I'll do is I'm going to go all the way back to frame 24. So I don't have any of this and I just have, the paper over here, and let me just hit a render. Okay, so what I want to do with the paper is fairly simple. We need the paper to have a little bit of transparency and a little bit of subsurface scattering. Okay, so let me just drag a box here and then take the subsurface a little high. See, so what that does is like you can see the cake sort of coming through, and then also increase the transparency a little bit. Yeah, there you go. See, so now you can see the cake sort of coming in through this, and lower the IOR and increase the roughness. Yeah, see, that looks a lot better. So now if I turn on everything, another thing I want to do with the cake is I want to just try upping the saturation a little bit. Yeah, okay. So now let's turn on the other lights. Okay, so I'll just take the environment light and turn it on. Yeah, let's also do one thing. Let's take the environment light and we'll color it slightly bluish. Okay, that's not bad. And then we'll turn on the top light. Yeah, okay. So now if I like draw a bigger box, yeah, that's not bad. Let's come up a particular frame. So let's come to like frame 40. For your final result or for your final rendering, it's a good idea to just, bake the entire animation out to disk, because it does get slow. Like it takes about, 15 seconds per frame. So you can save up on that render time by just, caching everything out to disk. So if you don't know how to do that, like I'll just stop this render for a second. What you can do is you can just come to the end of any of these and take a node called file cache. And like I won't do it right now because it'll just take too much time. But you give your frame range and you give the name. So you can give this an actual name as well. So we can call it like cake. We don't need this. Do a $F is for the frame and then bgo.sc. So give it a path. And then you say save to disk. So it will save out all 450 frames. And then once it has saved the whole thing to disk, turn on load from disk. So then the 15-second loading time that I'm getting, or the calculation time that I'm getting, that will go away. And you want to do that because then otherwise what's going to happen is like per frame, you will keep adding that 15 seconds. Okay, because every time the frame changes, it does need to recalculate, the entire cake. So it's best to just cache everything to disk and then use that. Okay, so yeah, there you go. That looks nice. The bubbles and everything look nice. Okay, and let's just come up to around 240 so we can see the final cake. Yeah, let's just do a render. Oh, hold on. Yeah, no wonder I couldn't see anything. I'm at the wrong spot. Yeah, we should be here. Suddenly wondering why I can't see the paper. Yeah, okay. So what we can also do, I think I should lower the saturation. I've increased it a little bit too much. Yeah, also lower the saturation for the icing. And I think we'll blur the icing a little bit. Like it's too shiny. Yeah, and lower the saturation. No, increase it a little bit. Yeah, so there you go. So let's just do a render of this. So I'll turn off the preview, so we'll see a final render. Like if you don't want these colors, you can also just, manually color it using, the basic shader if you don't want to use the attribute colors. But the attribute colors do, make life a lot simpler. But yeah, that's not bad. Okay. So let this render through and then I'll do a final frame as well. Yeah, so there you go. So this is, our final cake. Okay, so with the next lesson, we will start with the other baking process, which is how to take all of this high-res data and then bake it down to a low-res geometry, not the full animation, like just, the final cake, so that you can use it in other softwares, or even if you just want to use it for, other purposes and not for the animation. So that's what we'll start taking a look at with the next video.